OEM form that the price point here in Australia, I believe the RRP is $12,800. Stock trim for me right now, the bike's not there. Like with a little bit of extra money spent, with a little bit of refinement with the right technician, suspension settings, springs, and some motor mods, this bike is going to be a really good bike for anybody that wants to spend the extra time and investment to get it to where they want it. What's up guys, Joe Stevens here from Inside Dirt, and we just finished riding the 2021 CRF450r machine, and we're going to do a bike review for you guys right now on YouTube. If you go to the information below, you can find the link to our podcast, which is out on Spotify and iTunes and pretty much anywhere else you get your podcasts, and there is a full longer version for you to download and listen to there. But let's get to it. The 2021 CRF450r, it's a new generation machine from Honda. It's the next stage in development for the 450 machine from Honda. And look, I'm sure everyone's aware, there's a lot of hype for this bike, but what are the refinements? What has Honda changed? Keep it short and sweet. We've got a hydraulic clutch over here. That is new for the CRF450. They've added some different internal change to the basket with the hydraulic system. I think there's additional plates to beef up the shelf life from the 2020 and previous models that suffered with some clutch slippage and needing to replace that quite often. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of hydraulic clutches, but I didn't notice it as far as it being a negative. Coming from a cable bike, which I ride right now, it is a little different to get used to. But the clutch for the most part, very responsive, did what it needs to do. Didn't begin to slip at all when I was doing a moto. It really lasted pretty well. So that to me is an improvement on the 2020. What's up next? We've got right here the single-sided muffler. We've gone back to one muffler for 2021. Honda's been trademarked for running them two mufflers for a long time on the 450 machine. And aesthetically, it looks pretty cool. And they've changed, obviously, the aesthetics of the bike. Everything for, as far as plastics, got the alley tank now. Everything ties in really well with this single-sided muffler. Performance-wise, this is the thing, manufacturers put a lot of money into R&D when it comes to OEM mufflers, and haven't had a chance to compare it to an aftermarket yet, but with 3 motos in on this Honda that we rode today, the muffler really wasn't an issue for me. It sounds actually very quiet. I think it'd be interesting to hear what these bikes sound like with the aftermarket muffler. They'll be coming in the future soon, I'm sure. Chassis changes, I know that there's different componentry gone into the rear shock, and different fork settings. Now for me, I'm 95 kilos, I'm quite a heavier rider. What does that mean for your viewers in America? I think I'm around 200, 205 in pounds. So very light on the spring rates for me, very light. Did not sit up high enough in the stroke at all as far as suspension goes. So what did we do with suspension settings? I went harder on the rear. We went in 3 clicks, and I also went slower on the rear, try to slow it down and get some predictability out of it. On the front, we went the other way with the rebound, actually fastened it up, trying to open the front up a little bit, and I went 4 clicks harder, trying to get the front end to stand up. Now look, this is the thing. I was lucky enough to spend the day on this bike, as you'll see from the footage. I think if you jumped on it on a first impression, if you're a pro level guy, an advanced level guy, a vet guy that knows what he likes out of a bike, the suspension's not there in an OEM form. Very stink buggy, I would find on decel. It would get very unsettled. We pulled the forks through to try to counter that, so it's basically flush with the top of the triple clamps. That made a big difference with it holding up, going into turns, limiting the understeer, oversteer ratio, and allowing me to get on the edge of my tires coming in turns, setting up basically. That to me is a must. I'm 6 foot, I'm a taller rider, but I think even if you're a shorter, lighter rider, you'd want to try that. So make sure that you note that down if you're gonna test ride or buy this bike. Pulling them forks through, big improvement. And then like I said, harder, to me at least, harder on the forks, on the compression, faster on the rebound, and then we did the opposite with the shock. We slowed down the rebound, but also went harder. A lot of these issues can be fixed with just getting your local suspension technician to do springs and valving, which is going to make a massive difference on this bike. I don't know if it's going to fix completely the jitteriness of deceleration chop, the unsettled feeling. Honda 450s are kind of renowned for that, and I don't know if they're going to fix it completely, but you could definitely limit it with time on the bike, with testing, suspension settings. Spring rates and valving is really going to help. Next up, if you look at here on the controls, we have the new ignition map settings. We have maps, 3 maps for ignition. We have 3 maps for torque. This makes a massive difference to the performance of the bike. I was actually blown away at how much these map settings vary. Now the track I rode today, as you'll see in the footage, pretty hard base, pretty loamy on top, very difficult to carry too much corner speed, very hard to settle the bike. So for me, when I tried the torque settings higher up, say 2 or 3, 3 especially, it was just a little too much punch for me. And it was the same with the mapping. I tried stock, I tried 2, and I tried 3. I believe 2 is more of a smooth feeling map and 3 is a very punchy map. Now the 2019 to 2020 Honda, the motor was an absolute beast, and I rode that bike a few months ago, and it had anything a man could handle in a power plant. When you hit that sweet spot, when you hit the clutch out of turn, it would blow you back. You know, I settled on the first ignition map and I settled on the second torque map. To me, it made the power quite linear. And look, Honda isn't the only manufacturer now that's gone down this route of a linear power, kind of matches what they're doing with the KTMs and the Huskies and the gases, and really what you'd say now with the Kawasaki's, I feel. Honda's there too. This has a lot more linear feel. My current personal bike right now is a Suzuki RMZ450, so it's a very different feel to what I'm used to. So it really did take me a few sessions to get an ignition setting that I was comfortable with, and then getting used to the linear power base. But once I got used to it, like, I'll be honest, my first 2 motos, my first impressions when I was figuring out the suspension, where to run the forks through the clamps, how to map this bike, I really wasn't that impressed. By my 3rd moto of the day, once I figured all that out, I learned how to turn the bike, I learned where to decel, I learned how to roll on this linear power band. Man, I was super impressed. This is a really good bike. Out of the box, I think it is one of these new generation bikes where bike setup's going to be crucial for you to enjoy and have predictability. And I think, like I said, the stink bug, the unsettled feeling on decel, that's fine as long as it does it the same every single time. And I feel like you could get this Honda to a place where it does that. So the power band, the ignition, power plant, sorry, the ignition, play around with it. Like I said, I went map 1 and I went map 2 on the torque traction settings. But again, if we were at a sand track, if we were at a loam track, you know, if the track today was quite slow, you have variance, which I'm going to be interested to see what aftermarket ignitions come out for this and how the race teams program them. You know, obviously there's going to be options for aftermarket mufflers that you can combine with your ignition. But the bike, if you want it to be punchy, I think this is the beauty of it. It'll be punchy. If you want it to be mellow, it'll be mellow. There's a whole range that Honda's programmed in with this OEM ignition, which normally, you know, for my personal bikes, I take the OEM ignitions off and throw them away. We run aftermarket because they're a lot more programmable to what I would like. But I feel like you could get pretty close with this, which is encouraging, because I feel sometimes these OEM ignitions are a bit of a gimmick. Not the case with the Honda. So my closing thoughts on this bike are as follows. In OEM form, at the price point here in Australia, I believe the RRP is $12,800, okay? This is not a cheap motorcycle to purchase. Honda's put a lot of new technology in. They have a limited run. I think just about every unit that's coming into the country in Australia right now is spoken for. And I know Honda is doing a 2020 rerun for the riders that can't get access to the 21s, but they still want to stay on Honda, which is a cool initiative. I think in America, the bike retails for about $9,500, give or take, in US dollars. So look, the price point on this bike is up there. It's Honda, is a premium brand. You're going to pay, you know, you're going to pay a premium price tag. So closing thoughts. Look, in stock trim for me right now, the bike's not there. Okay, the ignition, you know, several ignition settings. They're not where they need to be. There's some dirty spots, a bit rich, some flat spots, but you can play with the ignition to get it to where you want. The chassis is a little bit out. Again, stink buggy, chop the throttle, a little bit unsettled. Not the easiest bike to turn consistently right now. However, in saying that, these are not all negatives, because in stock trim, there's not a lot of bikes I like personally. You know, they're not there, and you have to personalize them. So if you bought this in stock trim, you went to your local technician, you got your suspension valves and sprung, you got pipe, maybe you run an aftermarket ignition, maybe you refine the OEM ignition. Like I said, start of the day, wasn't really a fan. End of the day, I see a lot of potential in this bike. Downside is, yes, you are going to have to invest additionally in your setup for springs, some valving, and different things like that. But at the end of the day, who doesn't do that nowadays? Pretty much everyone gets a bike. There's very few people that run stock trim. You know, it's just the way the sport is. So don't buy this bike in stock form and expect it to be, you know, exactly where you want it. But I feel like with a little bit of extra money spent, with a little bit of refinement with the right technician, suspension settings, springs, and some motor mods, this bike is going to be a really good bike for anybody that wants to spend the extra time and investment to get it to where they want it. So that's closing thoughts. Thanks for watching on Inside Dirt. Please subscribe to the channel. We're pretty new on YouTube. We have a very established podcast. If you look in the show notes, you'll be able to hit that link and listen to us on Spotify and iTunes. And let us know what you think on the bike review. I'm pretty new to the bike review stuff, so let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.